Hi all, it's Lewis here with the next in the series of videos about vintage Mardaves. On the eve of the Mini 50 being released, what would be the best car to talk about but the Mini? I've been really lucky to receive a very early kit from Chris at Mardave, and I'm really chuffed about it. So I must say a massive thank you to getting this early kit here. I'm not going to do a full review of the kit, as I think that's being done by the RC Kicks channel, and he's got the talent and the equipment to do a much better job than I can. So the kit, as I've seen it so far, I've got number 22 here, and I absolutely love the package, the box, the certificate, the kit itself. It's a really nice package that Chris at Mardave has made up there. Being a collector, obviously this will not be a runner, and when I saw that a carbon chassis kit was available for it, of course I was going to say yes to that. Really nice. Why did I want a carbon kit? Because being a collector, I have a Mini Mark II. They're one of the most common Mardaves that you can find out there. So if you want to have an exact Mark II, they're really easy to buy. This being a limited edition special kit to celebrate Mardave's 50 years in building RC cars, and really celebrating the Mini as well, which is probably its most popular car. I love the fact that this car is going to be a bit different to all the other versions of the Mini out there. I haven't got the whole kit out here. I've picked out a few of my favourite bits. I love the numbered plate that will be fitted to the back of the chassis above the back axle. I love the fact that it's got the original bumpers, the front beam there, that the original steering format is used. There are some updated parts to do that, but it's still where it's the bell crank is fitted through the axle, just like it is in the older cars. It's a brilliant package, and I will be coming back to this in a future video. I'm going to talk now about the history of the Minis. So with these being much smaller cars, they're a lot easier to fit out on my counter here. And there we've got the where it all began with the Mark I. So the Mark I Mini, this was released in 1983, and I've got an article that was in a Model Cars magazine back in 83 that talked about how the Mark I Mini, it wasn't a planned production car as such, but more a car that sounds like it was put together to use up the 1/12 scale electric parts. So that was from the Mark II electric, where they've cut down the chassis a little bit shorter, but this actually caused a problem. It does state in the magazine that this whole plan actually backfired. So this car that was set up to use up some parts and possibly not be a long-term car in production, ended up becoming a massive success. So much so that Mardave had to go back into production and start making those parts again. So in a moment I'll talk about the differences between a Mark I and a Mark II. And there we have the Mark II. Get some different angles there. I love the size of these cars. They're really nice to work on. And then So back onto the Mark 1. It has all the feelings to me, like I said, of it not being a permanent kit. The box was quite bland in comparison to the other cars that were coming out at that time in the early 80s. This kit box here is actually a reproduction of the original. So that is exactly the same as they were, more or less. And that was very kindly made for me by a fellow collector, and I must say a massive thank you to Paul, who he actually supplied me that box as a bit of a trade for some parts, and I think it looks absolutely brilliant there with the car. And then as they went on to the Mark II, you can see that the box was much more attractive, made to go out in the stores and look like a car that was in full production. Another little sign is the instructions. So the Mark I instructions, they weren't supplied with a proper set of instructions for the car. You had a sheet that was dedicated to the Mark I Mini, and then you received the instructions for the Mark II Electric. So you would use those for the build, and then there was some bits of information on the Mini to complete your kit. The Mark II, on the other hand, that had a proper production run of dedicated instructions, and with, like a lot of the old Mardaves, the exploded diagrams that clearly showed you all the parts and the part numbers. So again, it was much more looking like a car that was produced for the masses. Now, some differences to look out for between a Mark I and a Mark II. I've done my best here to represent a Mark I. So this car does not have the original bumpers that it should have had. That's an original back bumper. I don't have a front. The plastic used on those feels as if it was fairly brittle, and so most of those front bumpers on the original Mark Is were probably mostly snapped. So finding them intact is really hard. You can also see that, also compared to the Mark II, it's not cut out. So you were supplied with a sheet, just like what I've made there, and then you would cut that as you wished. And then the other notable things on the body shell is that the Mark I body shell was a lot more basic. So you don't have a bonnet scoop, you don't have arches, and also you'll notice the back here, you don't have the moulded rear spoiler. And then if I go over to the Mark II, you've got your wheel arches, you've got your bonnet scoop, and you've got your moulded rear bumper on the back there. I'll take the bodies off in a moment and show you the differences between them on the chassis. These cars, very popular for racing. From reading the article in the magazine, it sounds like racing had started to be dominated by who had the deepest pockets in the 80s, and this was a way of racing basic cars with conditions in place about modifying, so that everybody on whatever budget had an equal chance in racing them. And this proved very, very successful, and I don't know the numbers, but thousands of these were sold. So I'm going to take the bodies off now and we'll have a look at the chassis.